Kaiser de Bello Gallico, 5:35 through 36. Oh, look at all those blonde haired Gauls. How terrible. Things are getting bad. Things are getting bad for the Romans. Not so much the Eburones, they're doing pretty good, but for the Romans. So remember, Romans were in a circle. And Ambiorix says, hey, get away from close in circuit fighting. The Romans have those butcher knives. Be careful. So he says, stay away. And then when they come out, move away from them. And then come back as they're getting back to their troops. And so let's see how it turns out. Trying my new microphone. So we start with an ablative absolute clause, as is common in Caesar, with which precept or command having been followed very diligently ab eis by his guys, the Eburones, when a certain cohort had accessorat, had come out of the circle and had made an attack, right? Because you want to be able to be aggressive and not defensive. The enemies were fleeing away. Velocissime. Notice those superlative adverbs. So they were flying away. Meanwhile, Nikesa erat, it was necessary. Well, not necessary. Just it's like it is what it is. Necessary. It's just bound to happen that in complement clause that part was nuded, was open, and that part of the soldiers who were left in the circle, that spears were being received, right? Were received from the open side. Because remember, when you leave the circle, you're defended by the guy to your right. He's got his shield. So when those guys go out to make their attack, then you've got a hole in the bucket. All right. I'm back again. And when they coeperant had begun, reverti, deponent verb, to return back again into that place, unde eran egressi, from whence they had come. All right. We have an et and an et. Oh, that's good. So they uh, were being surrounded. Circumventia banter. They were being surrounded by those guys who had yielded, and they were also being surrounded by those guys who had stood close by. So, there's people on the sides, and they get attacked on every side. And however, if they would wish to hold the land, right? They're gonna not we're not going to go back to the main force. We're going to stay out here as a cohort, and they would not leave. The place wouldn't be left, right? Nor would they leave the place in strength, nor were they able to avoid the uh, the thrown spears, the spears thrown by such a great multitude, having been packed in. So even if the small cohort would go out of the circle, and remember there were 15 cohorts, right? Even if they got out of the circle, they couldn't sustain the force, right? They couldn't hold the because they were just overwhelmed, and because they were packed in, they were just perfect targets for the Eburones drive-by, right? They're just throwing the spears. Doesn't matter where you aim, you're going to hit somebody. Having been, however, afflicted with so many disadvantages, ablative absolute clause, asyndeton, with many wounds having been received, nevertheless they were resisting, and ablative absolute clause, with a great part of the day having been consumed, because they were pugnerata. There was a fighting from the first hour to the 8th hour. So, I mean, this is like 8 hours of solid marching and fighting and no sleep. The Romans are having a trouble because this is Battles only last about an hour. They don't last this long. Nor was any unworthy act being committed, right? Nor was anything committed by them. So even though these were green troops, these Romans were quitting themselves fine. Then, tragedy befalls. Titus Ballaventius, who in the earlier year had led the first spear, that means he was the top soldier. And remember, non commissioned officers, centurions, are how Caesar's armies work. And we have a appositional, a man of strength and of great authority. He's transfixed. A spear is transfixed in either femur, both femurs is transfixed by a spear. So he's been rotisserie chickened. Quintus Lucanius, of the same rank, also very high powered, fighting bravely while he comes, notice compound verb, to aid his son, comes to aid his son, having been surrounded. Oh, filial piety. He's just killed. He's killed. Oh no, you lost two of your top leaders. What worse can happen? Well, then this is what worse happens. Then Lucius Cotta, the legate. Notice he gives the full title here. The legate. What's he doing? Urging on all the cohorts in the ranks. Well, he's wounded in his adverse mouth, in his facing mouth, by a sling. So he's out there talking, go at him, get him, get him, get him, get him, get him. And then a sling, like a 5-pound weight, suddenly slings at him at 50 miles an hour and smashes his jaw. No more encouraging right now. This is not just little prick. This is like, he's not yelling, he's not shouting. He's just like, All right. Quintus Titurius, the leader who isn't leading, having been moved by these things, he's rebus, when he had caught sight of Ambiorix. What's Ambiorix doing? Urging on his own buddies far off. What does Titurius do? He sends Gnaeus Pompeius, his interpreter, to him, that's Ambiorix, to ask, this is a supine complement clause, to ask, indirect command clause, that he spare not only the soldier boys, but himself. Notice Caesar's putting this commander concerns over his own men. Oh no. That guy, Ambiorix, responds having been called. Now this is when this gets not this is when you can see the difference in the writing. Clear writing, Caesar, we obfuscated lighting. Watch it. If he would wish, no subjunctive, to speak secum with him, it is permitted, indirect statement clause. It is permitted. And it's able that they could hope that it be allowed by the multitude, which thing pertains to the safety of the soldiers. Notice how complicated that is. That's because when Caesar gets complicated, someone's lying, just like those lying politicians. And furthermore, that there would be no harming to him verily, and that he would place himself, that he would place his own. I'm a trustworthy guy. I'm going to give you my word into that thing. He gave him his word before. He said, "Oh, I'm your friend," and then everybody gets killed. Oh, Titurius, you idiot. He, Titurius, communicates with the wounded Cotta if it seems good. You think so? To leave out of battle, and to have a speech together with Ambiorix. And then look, he's repeating the same words, that they could hope that something would be able to be hoped by him about their and the soldier boy's safety, something being obtained about their and the soldier boy's safety. Kata denies again and again. Well, he denies that he's going to go to an armed enemy, and he perseveres in this thing. I don't think he's able to say much. He's probably giving him a fine example of hand gestures because, Kata's got a broken jaw right now, giving him a few hand gestures to show his opinion. Oh my goodness, poor Romans. Now Titurius is relying on the goodwill and good hopes of Ambiorix, a man who's proven to be so trustworthy to give him safety. And I wonder how that's going to turn out. Well, we'll have to see in the next podcast.